What is up, everybody? Good Saturday morning. My name is John Newman from Sports Card Nation, Hobby Quick Hits. It's Saturday morning. It must be time for Hobby Hotline, the web's only sports card live call-in podcast, live on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, probably somewhere else. I'm not, I don't know. But awesome to be back. Happy to be on the week. We got Drew from Let Me Get That Potograph.
What's going on, man? Hope everybody's doing well.
And last but not least, Ben Wilson from About the Cards.
Hey, good morning, my brothers. I appreciate. I love you guys. It's gonna be a fun Saturday morning, I think.
Yeah, I love you too. Sentimental and sweet to start the day. I like it. What's going on, everybody? Mike Sommer, what's up? 1 million Cubs. Johnny 75, 3B collection. Everybody else I missed, what's going on? So, what's going on, guys? How's everything going? You guys still staying sane? Everybody doing all right?
Still upright. That's half the battle. Yeah.
That's about all you can ask. Well, there was shoot, we'll jump right into it, man, because there was a lot of stuff this week that I guess I want to touch on. And as always, guys, please feel free to call in and join the show. I'm going to put the link to the chat in the comments here in just a moment. We'd love to hear from you guys. As always, any questions that you do have, the show is for you guys and by you guys. So we want to talk and answer anything that you do have. What's up, Rich? And Rich has a question for Ben. So I guess we're going to start off with a question from Uncle Rich. What's going on, Rich? Go on and ask away for Ben. What's going on, everybody? Shane, how's it going, man?
Yeah, while we're waiting for Rich, it's been kind of, as expected, been a little slow in the hobby for the last couple of weeks. It seemed like, on all of our individual shows, we had no shortage of topics to talk about each and every week. And as to be expected, there's products aren't coming out as frequently as they would be under normal circumstances. Products are being considerably delayed with the to be determined dates on them. And there's not as much going on right now, which is not a bad thing, because for people that aren't organized, it should give you some time, hopefully, if you're spending time in the hobby, of course. To organize yourself, get cards listed if you've got inventory to move, get cards into binders, checklists to sets and other things you're looking to complete, and chase down some of those cards that you're after, that, all kinds of time right now, which is really fun.
It is.
To kind of rededicate ourselves to different parts of the hobby. And who knows, you might find a part of the hobby that you didn't even know you liked,
Yeah. Well, we got, as I pulled him in a little bit early, welcome Uncle Rich to the show. How's it going, bud?
I'm glad to make it on time. And I have a question for Mr. Ben based on some of his Twitter comments yesterday.
All right. I have an idea. I know where this is going.
Hey, well, it was nice being on the show. See you, everybody, later.
Ben, you were posting about investing in baseball, in sports cards.
Right.
And I think and I'm going to say this, and I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I think you're absolutely right and absolutely wrong at the same time.
Sure.
And I want to get everybody's opinion, and plus the people who are listening too. I think you're absolutely right in the technical description you use about investing. When you talk about the technical dictionary definition about investment for cards, it's, hey, it's like investing in stocks or bonds or gold or whatever. It's the asset you deal with. I think we look as a hobby investing in cards slightly differently. I think we don't always look long term. I think there were and I wrote about this in one of my GTS Clients Corners column. I think there are several different ways we can use the word investment. And I know that we're not collectors necessarily. We're collectors, most of us too, but we also want to have a fiduciary interest in our cards. John might want to start doing a big Reggie Jackson collection someday, and that can become his investment. Drew, you do all sorts of things in the hobby. And so, Ben, I don't see a problem with people calling it an investment, even if it's not truly an investment, even if it's an investment to flip in a week later. I know somebody on ComC I know somebody who used ComC when Yogi Ferrell got hot here in Dallas. He bought some cards for $9 at ComC. He invested in him, and a week later he sold them at $60. That's a quick flip, but that's also an investment because
but
he could have broken his leg the next day. And
what that is
gone.
that and again, by definition, it's not an investment. What it is it's day trading. What does a day trader do? They buy a stock at $5 to sell it at $5
stocks for the day.
Well,
they sell it $5. They sell it $5
comes down to really, Ben, honestly, is how you're going to look at the word. I mean, that's going to be where you fall on it. If you look at it, because I mean, in my opinion, Rich is right. It is in a way. I don't know if you want to call it, but you're also right, Ben, that by strict definition, it's not. But in a way, I mean, what would you call it then? Besides, I mean, because day trading, like John said, would technically be considered investing in a stock for a day, right? I mean, so what should people be calling it?
There's a lot of room in that word investing, as Rich alluded to, and the first thing you'll hear from most professors if you take a course in economics at a college level, the first thing they're going to tell you is the words that are used by the layperson are not words we're going to use in these classes.
Right.
Value, we don't use because we use worth. We don't use invest for short-term flips because what you're doing is you're capitalizing on market inefficiencies. Much again, like a day trader will buy a stock at $5 to sell it at $5.10. A true investor will buy it for $5 and wait until it appreciates to $7 to $10 to $12 to $15. But they're also waiting over a long period of time, generally outside of capital gains taxation requirements and restrictions, right? Yogi Ferrell, what we're doing is we're capitalizing on a short-term spike in his performance. One thing we have to remember about this hobby is it's the only hobby in the world, unless I'm wrong. I've thought about this and done research on it. The only hobby where the card itself, the item itself, is predicated on the performance of a human being, a third-party human being. If we buy a Yogi Ferrell card for $0.25 and he has a monster game this evening, it has an opportunity to sell for $1 or more, right? We're just, and we're waiting for Yogi Ferrell to perform. Now, much like with, say, like a Jeremy Lin years ago when Linsanity took off and people were buying dollar cards for $10,000.
Yeah.
And then months later, they're back in the dollar box because he's, a bench warmer. It was a fantastic story, right? Because he's Asian American and there's not a lot of Asian Americans in the NBA and he was fun to watch and he's putting up high scoring numbers. But at the same time, his defense left a lot to be desired, and he's scoring 30, but he's given up 30 on the defensive end, and people are like, this is not sustainable. But he was playing, I think, for the Knicks at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And they were horrible.
And he's a good Harvard boy, so all the rich people said, there's an Ivy Leaguer on top of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I mean, the word investment within the hobby, I think we are arguing semantics because the common person, it really is. They need a word to label it. But if you're buying something at X for $5 with the intent to sell it at Y for $10 and make a profit of $5, which is your Z denominator in this equation, it's a business. It really is. If you're buying it with the intent to sell it, if I spend $20 at the dollar box buying a bunch of dollar guys and they're sitting in a box and that's my quote unquote investment, there's a good chance that they'll never be worth more than $1. And statistically speaking, it's going to happen more often than not. We all can throw out, I bought this guy and he turned
Of course. Yeah, of course. There's going to be exceptions.
On this side, I got 100 on this side.
Sure. So Derek Haggart from Facebook, actually, Ben, has a question, and I think I think you're right. I think it does come down to semantics, and maybe as all of us as a show, we can come up with a word that we can actually start using that doesn't trigger half of the community when you say it. But Derek's asking, what do we think about grading cards, whether it's buying, selling, or grading cards for long term? I'll put it in air quotes, investing.
John, I see John pointed right to his shirt, so why don't you lead off?
Yeah, it's something I do. So this is right up my alley. One of my things I do is I buy cards raw in lots, in 100 count lots individually, and with the most of those purchases, not all of them, the intent is probably to get some of those slabbed to hold, and I use the term marinate, like steak, but I'll marinate cards. I'll put them in a box for years. I was good piggybacking off what Ben said, with the purpose, let's be honest, that they're going to appreciate being 9.5, 10s, pristines, and then as that player's performance dictates, then sell them maybe, or keep them even longer. There's times where that's the decision in your own mind you have to make. Do I sell it now? Do I wait? Has this got more of a ceiling on it, or are we at the ceiling? And so that's what I do. And I use, I've gotten into SGC lately, but I've used PSA and BGS as well. They're the big three. And so I'm a big grader. I mean, I've probably graded, I think I talked about this on my show a couple of weeks back, probably between all total 3,000 to 4,000 cards. Now, I don't have 3,000 graded cards in my inventory at the moment, but I probably have 500, 600. But I've graded a total of 4,000 cards since gradings hit the scene.
And Drew, I know you Drew, in your last show you talked about SGC quite a bit too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, and I mean, John's got the shirt on right now. I think they're one of those companies that it's really, I mean, if you can look at it, the proof is in the sales. They're really starting in the modern market to have comparable sales when you're looking at to PSA and BGS on certain cards. Now, it's not across the board, obviously, but it's not across the board for any company. Certain cards have always sold better in BGS or SGC or PSA, but you've seen a pretty substantial increase, in the amount of submissions they're getting, but also just the secondary market value it's blowing up pretty fast. And I mean, I know a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that they were the ones open and a lot of people are submitting to them, but those people haven't even gotten their cards back yet. So most of the cards that these people are talking about, and I think a lot of the hype is building upon, aren't even on the market yet and really aren't even slabbed yet, if you think about it. But I do see them really, I don't know. There was a massive gap in modern. And I mean, you can look at, we've had multiple, I put up a couple of posts, a Pujols at a 1250 rookie, the PSA 10, both of them PWCC. The SGC 10 beat it out by a couple $100. And I mean, I don't know whether that could be, you'd have to look more into the actual auctions, but you just see the gap closing significantly.
Yeah, Ben.
It has.
And Ben, I suspect you don't own many graded cards in your A's collection. Would I be correct in that presumption?
Yeah, I would say I own a couple of graded Mickey Mantles, nice. And then I own a couple of McGuire's, obviously the 85 and the 87, because, but again, those were also, I felt like I needed 185 and 187 just to have. And then I picked up a couple more 85s at shows because they were just stupid cheap, right? You're getting a graded 8 for $15. If you can get a raw for $7, why not put double your money and get, that's hard to pass up. But would I go on eBay right now and type in 1985 Topps McGuire graded? I would absolutely not. Now, if Rich was on there and he's like, hey, Ben, check this one out. It's super cheap. In fact, the last one I bought, Big Shep pulled me over to a table. He goes, this guy has one over here, graded 8 for $15, dude. It's yours. You have to buy it. And it's like, you're right.
We had fun at the National because BBC sold a bunch of PSA for $10 each. So Stephan, Angela, Shep, and I all bought one this to show you.
Yeah, Kevin, and real quick to just comment on something Kevin Jones in the comments is saying that there's a coordinated effort online to build up respect for SGC, and that there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a psychological shift for sure. And I just want to touch on that for a minute, Kevin, because while I do in a way agree with you because there has been a marketing push towards that, I would also argue that the premiums, quote unquote, that are placed on stuff to begin with was also a psychological and coordinated effort, albeit possibly with the grading companies and some bulk subbers, but that's a much larger conversation and a different level. But yes, there is, I think, and they are trying to push, and they should be making a push when over this time when they were able to keep grading cards. And I mean, you're looking at the quality, it's coming out good. If that quality can be sustained long term and they can actually make a lot of these new submission and new subbers actually happy, then, you know, that's going to be the ultimate determining factor, I think.
Okay, a couple things on a historical perspective.
Sure.
You know, I have not priced cards, you know, since 2007. I've not, you know, and then I did some contract work at Beckett. But I mean, back in the day, you are correct, Drew. SGC cards never sold in the modern era for anywhere close to what PSA or BGS cards did. That was true for 30 years or 25 years of SGC's existence. So good that people are now looking at a third option. So good for them that they've been able to do a marketing. They've been able to stay open because of what's going on in Florida. So good for them for being another viable option to go with PSA and BGS, both of whom have had to deal with various restrictions. Texas is opening up a bit as of yesterday. So there'll probably be some more BGS stuff coming out in the very near future.
Quick question on that, Rich. Do you have any information on if Cardamundi is opening, or do they have a...
I have not heard. I suspect it will open with limited limited things because, and I don't know if it's Cardamundi, if Cardamundi is actually the printing press down the street from my office, which I could walk to. But I do know that that's in Collin County, and Collin County was one of the last of the Texas people to go to a more serious restriction. So they will open up faster than more people. So I suspect we will start seeing cards printed by the end of the month.
Right.
I suspect we will see that, you know, within a week or two, because I think the new orders from Governor Abbott are effective as of the 27th or something like that. So that's it.
Well, that's good news.
And I think we're also, in terms of Derek's question, I think long term we are in a lot of ways safer off with graded cards. And I know there was a big to-do last year about, we'll call it the trimming scandal. And I know there are cards that are not perfect in the holders, and we will leave it at that.
Right.
But if we are going to presume that 98% of the cards are graded reasonably correctly and put into holders, that gives you an extra layer of protection for your cards. And if you have a valuable card like Ben's Mantles, then it's probably a good long-term investment because it's less susceptible to elements. It's less susceptible to a human error like dropping the card. I mean, or losing it. It's harder to lose a slab. There's a famous story that one of the 1914 Baltimore News's Babe Ruth cards, Barry Halper accidentally threw away. That's only like $50,000. I mean, if it was in a holder, he probably wouldn't have thrown it away.
No.
Right.
You know, so there is something to be said for the protection a holder gives you. When I was still at Beckett, and I still remember we ran articles after Katrina, the graded card, the BGS graded card, survived Hurricane Katrina. I mean, you know, they survived without really getting damaged. You know, you protect your cards, it's a good protection and could be a good investment. Now, I point out John and Reggie Jackson. Reggie has 63 career homers, something like that. If you have some Reggie Jackson rookies and you have them in the holder, you're probably perfectly safe, you know, short and long term with those cards.
And just a one-off to Rich's point real quick, it really is amazing when we think that there's Rich might be able to correct my number, but roughly 3 million T206s still in circulation. To think of what they went through. They went through World War I. They went through the Great Depression. They went through a Second World War and Vietnam and so on and so forth. And not to mention all of the natural disasters, right? Earthquakes and tornadoes, et cetera. And for it to be 110 years later and we still have 3 million of these, which were an afterthought more or less at the time. It was just a ploy to get you to buy, you know, this tobacco versus that tobacco. and it really is amazing that many of these survived countless hands. And when I look at my T206s, I'm thinking, man, if these could talk and find out what we don't own any cards. We're all caretakers. We're all going to die someday, and this collection is going to move on to another caretaker. Am I caretaker number 5?
I just got depressed.
Yeah, I know.
Or
right?
am I caretaker number 5 or am I caretaker number 25?
I'm
taking them with me. I don't know what you guys.
Double plot.
If I could just say two quick things about the investing topic before we move on.
Sure.
One, there's plenty of money to be made in this hobby. We all know that. My entire PC is predicated on all of you out there opening up product and not wanting your A's and selling them to me. There's plenty of money. We all open up a box and say, I don't need this, so let me sell it to buy something else I do want. And that's a self-sustaining hobby. And our fellow co-host who's not on today, Mike Sommer, go to waxpackhero.com. Listen to his podcast. He has a lot of good advice for the folks that are looking to create a self-sustaining hobby. You can absolutely do it. To John's point about I've got all these graded cards, there's worse places to park your money. There are. But make sure it's disposable money. It's not mortgage money, because that's where that quote unquote investment word comes into it, where I'm going to take money out of my household. If you have extra money laying around and you want to put it in a 2017 Bowman Chrome First of X player and save it for a rainy day. But understand one thing. These cards have no value outside of what we say they do. I've got all these little figures next to me, right? This is only worth what we agree, right? Nobody else cares what this is worth. And at the end of the day, a company, I worked for a Hostess, and I've said this before. They went out of business because they were cash flow insolvent. 20,000 people overnight out of business, right? When they sold their assets on the on the market, and they sold off all of their brands and all of their trucks and this and that, they sold for $3.2 billion. How does a company that has no money to operate tomorrow sell for over $3 billion? They couldn't even pay their drivers and their bakers earned money. Like I had 2 weeks vacation here it is 8 years later, I still haven't been paid out for, and I never will. Right. And that's okay. But you sold for $3.2 billion. When you invest in stocks, even when right now we're in a very dark time in this new economic recession. A lot of companies are going to close, but they still have liquid assets that they can move. A 1987 Topps Maguire is only worth what we suggest it's worth. The 85 Maguire once sold for $100 and now sells regularly for $4 to $7. Why? Because the market has shifted. And, so before we move on, that was just kind of one of those things. And to plug a future episode of Sports Card Nation, I think Johnny might have me on so that we can kind of respectfully butt heads and have a fluid discussion.
That's true. But let me give you the tail of the tape. I'm going to tell you basically my angle, which I've said plenty of times before. I believe you can invest in anything. Now, some things are better investments. We have a guy here in Syracuse who invested in trash, and he's a multi-millionaire. So when you saw Tom Brady at the Carrier Dome a couple months back, he was that guy's guest, and he's made multi-millions in investing in trash and rubbish. And so,
once again, I agree with you, John, but I think once again that comes down to the semantics and how you look at the word.
But that's what I mean. You can invest in anything.
All right, and let's
and then a quick story about T206s. Ben was talking about how they survived all these years. Circa 1989, 1990, several hundred legitimately, probably sevens or better, walked into Marco Roll's store or show in North Carolina, the ones Joe Drellick now runs. Legitimate, but they weren't trimmed, they weren't anything. I mean, there are cards, not obviously not most of them, but there were cards that even survived in beautiful condition from that era.
I'm sure.
I've got one in the mail today that's coming. That's not a T206, but it's from 1888, and it's in an SGC holder, and it's a 5. And you look at it, and you're like, you see cards nowadays that get 7s, and you're like, okay, that's it's incredible. Okay.
What is it? An old Judge or Ginter or what?
It's an old Ginter. Yeah, it's an old Ginter World Smokers. Yeah,
I some of those old Ginter like World's dudes. I think from 1888. I picked up a couple of those raw because they were just neat. The subject matter doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
it's like I got something that was released from 1888 when Rich was in high school. It's neat. I got something in the 1800s in here. Rich was on his first marriage or second marriage, and this is brand new to him. And it's amazing. I mean, I had a card shop owner call me one day, and he's like, "Ben, can you get down here this afternoon?" I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "You have to see this." And guy had a bunch of stuff from the 50s and 60s, like the Topps Bigs from the Giants, I think they were called, from 64. And he had like 8 mantles and 5 errands and flipping pages. They're all pristine. And the dad died and left these to his 3 kids. And the one son of the 3 wanted to keep them all. And so the card shop owner had to appraise them because he was willing to buy his siblings out and he needed them appraised. And for the 10 of us that are standing there, we're just trying not to drool on this man's collection. Right. But you're looking at it like, how in the world do you have they're not as old, but to have all that in one place, and they're literally, I mean, if you were to grade this stuff, they were all 7s and above, and it's just like, good, sweet Lord. It's like, I would.
Well, we actually have a caller real quick. I hate to cut you off, Ben, but we do have a caller. Mark Hoyle joining the show. Mark, thanks for calling in.
How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
How you doing, Ben? John?
Good, Mark.
The T206s got brought up, so figured I'd mention a little project that we have going at Sabre. It's called the T206 Photo Project, and we're trying to find an original photo for every T206 card.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
The project was brought to us already by a guy, Matt Haynes out of Illinois. He's already done 86 of them. He brought it to the Sabre baseball card committee. The other night we had a Zoom meeting with like 20 guys, and now we're kind of taking it over. We got 524 cards to find. So it's pretty ambitious.
Are you doing like the polar bear backs and the Piedmont backs, or are you just doing just the fronts? That's all we need.
Just the fronts.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. And if somebody does have any of them that you don't have, maybe we can help you out, or some of the viewers can. Where can they get in touch with you at if they do have some of it?
They're on Twitter. It's a Sabre card committee. We're looking for. It started out as just photos. We know it's pretty ambitious, but we'll accept old newspaper clippings that have their photo on it, old periodicals like a Spalding guide, anything like that. So,
Mark, how's your Red Sox collection doing? By the way, the reason I ask is Mark is one of the leading Red Sox collectors in the country, and if you follow him on Twitter, he comes up with some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen in my life. Yeah.
Well, the other reason I wanted to call in is just say hello to Uncle Rich. So,
hi, Mark. I'm glad
you're going to go to Sabre. Were you going to Sabre this year?
I go on and off. The last one one of the last ones I went to was 2002 in Boston.
Yep.
So that and then I went for a few years. I think the last one I've gone to is 2012 in Minneapolis. Yeah, and kind of sad that they've had to postpone the Baltimore one this year.
Right. I had it's Sabre 50, so it was a pretty big one, and they have the first Burdick Award, which Mike Arenstein got awarded, and a bunch of us were just really looking forward to meeting Mike. Do you know Mike, Rich?
I remember Mike, and I talked to Andrew quite a bit between Twitter and Net54. We'll send DMs and PMs back and forth.
Yeah. Real quick, can you guys tell the listeners who Mike Arenstein is? Because he's a pretty big name in the hobby, and not a lot of people might be familiar with his name.
He, the founder of TCMA, owned one of the first card stores in the country in Cooperstown. One of the first periodicals, issued the 81 Don Russ set, numerous minor league sets, and actually Andrew and I and a few guys had talked about we were going to resurrect possibly a little bit of TCMA for this upcoming Sabre, almost like a greatest hits type package of cards or whatnot. But that's
awesome.
By the way,
that's on hold for a year. So
by the way, the TC and TCMA stood for two things. It stood for the Card Memorabilia Association. It also stood for the initials of the other person who did that, which was Tom Collier, who was a major collector, I believe, in Delaware and had some amazing stuff back in the day. I know my hobby mentor, Tom Reed, would buy stuff from him once or twice a year, and it was always fun to see what Tom would bring back from his trips to Collier's house.
Yeah. Mike had one of the first nationals, so to speak, in his basement in New York. So he goes way back. So.
Yeah, Net 54 posted those photos recently, and there were like 13 people there,
right?
At that show. A couple whom actually are still with us, and posted their recollections of the event on that thread on Net 54.
Yeah, he's actually still making cards. He's out in Arizona, retired. There's a minor league team in town, and he sent me some postcards the other day. They're actually. He can't get out. It's in his blood. He can't get it out. So still doing it.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
So yeah, if anybody can help out with our T206,
absolutely,
project, be appreciated. Spread the word.
Absolutely,
for the platform, guys.
Sure. Thanks for calling in, Mark. We absolutely will.
Alrighty. Thank you, guys.
Good to meet you, Mark.
If you follow Mark and you collect anything pre-war, Mark is going to cost you so much money because I thought my checklist was complete, pre-war, or complete, like as in I got most of it.
Right.
And then Mark will tag me, Ben, do you have this? Do you have this? And I'm just like, Mark,
nope.
Please.
We actually have another caller in now. We've actually got another caller to bring in. So how's it going, man?
Going good. I'm doing good.
What can we do for you today, man?
So I have a question. What do you think about, and this was one of the topics I think you were supposed to talk about, was what do you think about Panini stop honoring expired redemptions?
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things on the list today. So no better time than now to talk about it. So thanks for the question, as always. And guys, this is this one's pretty interesting. For those of you that don't know, particularly what he's talking about, Panini quietly did some website upgrades recently and decided to alter their redemption program. They are no longer honoring expired redemptions. You used to be able to go into the computer and type them in, and they would show up on screen. Now they won't even work. They cannot be put in. They're not honoring them anymore. And Panini CSM on Twitter did confirm that this is a new policy. So, what do you guys think about that, really? Because that was one of the things that I thought they had going for them against other companies, was the way they would handle their redemption policy I always thought was flawless. But I just think, I don't know, doing this quietly at this time and this period just seems a little odd to me. I don't know if possibly Kobe and everything had anything to do with this at all. Because I know they've been struggling to deal with how to deal with some of his stuff, from what I've been told. So what do you guys think about all this?
Well, first,
it's not good.
I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
No, it's not good. It's Panini, another one of those things they do, which disgruntles people. I think the timing of it stinks. I think the way I read it, this isn't like if it was a temporary thing, if they said like due to COVID-19 at this time,
this is a new policy.
I'd give them a pass, but this looks like a permanent policy, even when this pandemic is conquered and done. This looks like something that they're just putting in full time, and if that's the case, it's not good. It's not, it's not geared to the customer, which is your consumer, and so a lot of people are going to be mad about it. Especially
I always
if you
look
buy
at
a product that's a couple years old. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I always look at it with the Julio Jones situation. Though his autographs, his redemptions took over 7 years to fulfill. Panini did about 8 blog posts on it when they were done about how they finally came in. But a lot of people, had moved on from those cards, had gotten replacements because they'd been told by Panini that they didn't know if they'd ever come in. But then eventually, 7 years later, he got around to doing it. And so I don't know. I don't know if they're changing how the contracts are going to be worded with athletes or what they're doing. But Ben, Rich, what do you get? What sense does this make?
Well, first, a company has a right to do what
of course
a company has a right to do. It is Panini's decision. It is not yours, mine, John's, Ben's. And I was just thinking, not only that, but think about one of their biggest ways of getting new autographs in, which are rookie photo sheets. The NFL we'll call it the NFL Combine. It's not the Combine, but
right.
The after they're drafted, we'll call it the event they have where it's the rookie photo shoot, where a lot of players sign. There's an NBA rookie photo shoot they have usually a couple weeks after the National. Odds are pretty good you may not have either of those events this year.
Yep.
Some of that gives you a little leeway when you're getting extra autographs. Hey, okay, we weren't able to get this, but we got you this. You're not going to have as much new stuff coming in. So if you're not having as much new stuff coming in, you may not be able to do what you did previously, which was just keep going down the road where, okay, Julio Jones didn't sign, but the leading receiver did sign this year. So let's give you the leading receiver card instead, from this year's draft. So if you're not getting new material like that in, all of a sudden you're going to you may run out of inventory totally. And we don't know how much Panini has. That's above our pay grade. That's none of our business. So on that level, it sounds bad, but there's probably legitimate good corporate reasons for doing that.
I'm sure. There was a tweet yesterday that was brought to our attention about a guy who'd opened up a box from 2013 and had a redemption that expired in 2015. It's like, first off, it is a 5-year-old redemption. And the optics look really bad. Could Panini offer Panini points or store credit for those and say, hey, you get 10% off your next purchase? Sorry about that. Kind of yeah, they could. But do they have to? Absolutely not. And at what point does a company have to do that? And again, we're just playing devil's advocate here. It's not their responsibility.
No.
There's a 2-year window in which they're, within good faith, they're going to do their best efforts. Yeah, I'd have to think Topps and Panini and Upper Deck, they're going to want to fill these redemptions. When they put them in there, they have every intent, I would imagine, to get that card live as soon as possible.
They absolutely do. And
I think it's unfortunate, and we feel bad for the guy who ends up with it, the guy or gal, I should say, right? Who ends up with it. But at the end of the day, Rich is right. Panini can draw a hard line. It's not their responsibility. And as collectors, we're going to look at it differently because we're collectors and we want that card. And it does discourage us from opening up older products outside of a 2-year window. But it's one of those things.
Collecting the players that are redemptions, period. Like it'll stray people from collecting redemptions, period, I think. But like you said, they can do whatever they want, absolutely. I just think that they've said publicly on my show, on y'all shows everywhere, like when we talk to anyone there about redemptions, about how they want to keep improving and bettering the process for the customer. And I just see this as a completely backwards move. But I'm wondering, honestly, if it doesn't have something to do with what Rich was talking about, which I mentioned this on my show, that the rookie premiere for the NFL probably not going to go on. That is when about 90% of the first, at least the first half of the year's autographs are signed at those events. NBA photo shoot, probably not going to happen. So when we look at these upcoming products, maybe this is a preemptive thing of them saying, like, we know this collecting year may be completely different. They might have some products that have to be slashed because they can't get what they actually originally intended with autographs, whatever it is. And I'm wondering if that might be, a reason, whatever it may be. But I do think, Rich brought up a really good point, at least in terms of products coming out this year. For them to have no more expired redemptions, I think we're probably going to see a lot of redemptions this year.
And one final thought is, right now we can't go to a restaurant. Hell, we can't go to work in some cases. But what we need to understand is it's for now, not forever. It's for now. So this doesn't mean Panini can't theoretically pivot in 3 months and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and start to honor older redemptions. It could be indefinitely. It could be forever. But it could be, for just right now, 3 months, 6 months, maybe the next calendar year. We don't know. But I have to respect them for protecting their best interests as a card manufacturer. And as Rich said, it's above our pay grade. We don't know who went, what, where, why went into this decision. But they're in a boardroom. They're looking at their best interests. And you still have a 2-year window. So, okay, here it is. It's 2020. You buy anything before 2018, understand if there's a redemption in there, Sorry. So
Tough.
buyer beware from this point forward, at least until that policy changes, if it ever changes.
Yeah.
I'd still like to see them do something for that customer that purchased their product. Even if it's like you said, Ben, Panini points. I know a couple of the listeners in the chat room put that something as a sign of good faith. Hey, thanks for buying that product. Thanks for buying Panini. We can't give you the card that the redemption card's for, but here's this. It's just good customer service. You're right. They don't have to. And frankly, they don't have to because people are just eating this stuff up before it even hits the shelf. So yeah, sure. But it's just, I don't know. There's just good faith business things that companies can do. And to me, they should do something, even something small, if that's what it takes.
Yep. All right. Well, John, actually, as we move on now, you'd actually brought this up, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit as we talk about some products possibly not coming out and a lot of stuff, being delayed. Topps did announce recently Bowman First Edition, which is an online exclusive, I understand. John, I know you've read into a lot more about this, so why don't you go on and take it away and tell everybody a little bit more about it.
Yeah, they're 10 card packs, $14.99 a piece. Same design as the 2020 Bowman, but they're going to have a first edition stamp on it. I don't know if it's going to be raised or just like the Montgomery 582. Goes on sale for 3 days, a 3-day window, April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Online, like you said. They're going to limit how many you can buy, so you can't go online and buy 1,000 packs. What that limit is, they haven't disclosed that as of yet. I'm sure we'll hear as that date moves closer. They're also going to allocate some packs to what they called MVP hobby stores, so probably their biggest buyers of the product on the store on the LCS front. And, there's going to be colored parallels. I just posted yesterday all the odds, and there is going to be some chrome autographs in there as well. It's obviously pretty short news. In other words, it looks like they're just pivoting from not being able to get Bowman out with what's going on with Carter Mundy. So this is kind of plan B, I think, in their case.
Sure. Yeah, I assume these are being printed probably down in Florida where they do their on-demand stuff. I don't know, but it does seem that way. Ben, what do you think about all this? What do you think about them putting out a Bowman? I guess another Bowman.
More A's.
More A's for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine that all these companies are bleeding revenue right now, right? They're, Topps now is not available, right? I know they Topps turned off the clock. But you start losing all these different revenue streams, and you have to pivot. I can see them working, and I can respect that. And I know that there's such a large group of speculators in the hobby that live and die for Bowman. That's really what they're here for. So to come up with a new product, hey, it's cool. I'm glad that they're going to do their best to try to limit it so that people can't corner the market. It seems like it's a palatable price point for those that want to get into it. So, hey, it's something for now for us to collect until life goes back to quote-unquote normalcy.
And I also know that it's a little more than online. I know that some people, and Topps didn't specify, but I know Mike Fruitman on Facebook posted that some Topps I'll use the word distributors, but it may not be the distributors. It may be some of their dealers. It may be, as posted out, some of the case breakers will also receive some of these packs. But it was not specific as to whom is getting what.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
It's something to appease that market and kind of say, it's an olive branch. Hey, we know that Bowman is huge, and I'm sure we don't know what Topps' bottom line, their profit and loss looks like on a monthly basis, and we don't know how bad Bowman's going to affect their April, their quarter 2 sales. We don't know. We don't know when we're going to see Bowman live. Drew, has there been a checklist yet as to
Not that I've seen. I looked before, and it looks like they haven't even specified the autographs, like who the actual autographs are going to be. It looks like, John, how big is the set?
150 cards.
150.
No checklist as yet. Well, breaking hobby news, no checklist.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of like it as a sleeper product. I don't know. I'm getting again, I don't know. This is, like Ben would say, all speculation. I got a feeling it's not going to be mass produced. I think it's just a stopgap until they can get Bowman out. And then Bowman's going to come out late, albeit, and people are going to switch gears to that. And now you have a product that's going to be like the Bowman with that first edition stamp on it, with maybe more limited quantity. So it's almost becomes like a parallel where they may be valued more. If you have, I'll throw a name out there, Wander Franco Bowman first edition, or just the Wander Franco 2020 Bowman. I'm thinking that first edition at a lower print run might be eventually more in demand. So I think it's going to be one of those products, that some people I might buy, put away, not open some, put some away. And I did that with the Draft Sapphire. I still got some boxes of that, and that thing, they're like $200 a box now, the last time I even checked. So at $35 issue price. So I think it may be one of those type of products. I don't mean I'm right. That's just my
This is going to hurt, because if there are A's in this, and I imagine there's probably going to be 4 or 5, it might hurt the secondary opportunity to buy those. But if you are somebody who likes to speculate and put something aside for a rainy day, if you can get your hands on these packs, these would be something you do not want to open, because the unknown of this, I could see these completely, like John said, once Bowman releases and we get back to a weekly, bi-weekly release schedule on the baseball side of things, I could totally see these blowing up on the secondary and going from $15 to hundreds of dollars, especially if they're like a cello pack where you can see somebody on the outside, and there's somebody on the outside. There was that 83 Topps pack that had, I think, a Gwen and a Boggs on it, that sold for tons of money years ago because they were both going to grade very well. And unopened with both of them on the top was huge. And so, again, we don't know how they're going to be packed, if it's going to be a closed pack and you don't know what's inside.
Right.
If you can see a Wander Franco sitting on top, or whoever is going to be the chase guys on this. But this is definitely going to be something, if that's your cup of tea, go for it.
Well, Chris Harris brings up a good question, and I kind of want to ask Rich a little bit about this, since I think you'll have a little more knowledge on maybe what we can expect. He's asking on YouTube, is first edition possibly replacing the retail Bowman Mega Box this year? And, like I was just saying, with everything that's going on right now and the uncertainty and not being able to have these cards printed, not being able to have the autograph signings and everything, I do think that we're going to see a lot of altering to the release calendar this year. A lot of products possibly being switched around, stuff that would normally come out, probably not, probably cutting the amount of releases total. And so that could possibly be the case with this first edition. It may be a way to get them to be able to get extra Bowman out there. But Rich, when you, obviously you've been in the hobby for a long time. What do you see this year when it comes to when they can put boxes out? Are they going to be, you think, canceling some releases probably, or?
Well, considering Ben says I've been around since the 19th century, I think they are going to make sure that items do get to the big box retail outlets. If for no other reason than many parts of the country are underserved by baseball card stores, if there are any. And the only way you can pick up new cards is to go to the big box stores. So short term, as I think Drew has it correct, you're going to see reshuffling this year. You're going to see, if the printing presses are not open, you will see what can be done internally or in Florida or in places used. And then you will see, as the printing presses reopen, what goes to the hobby stores, what goes to the retail stores. So replace, we don't know at this point. All we know is that we're going to see first edition packs next week. Will we see mega boxes? We probably will at some point, if for no other reason than how popular they are.
Right.
The mega boxes bring good profit. And you don't want, and I know the return policies on retail are got to be much different than hobby. So they won't print them unless they think they can sell them all. So you will see retail this year. There'll be a pent-up demand. I mean, heck, there's a pent-up demand in DFW for shows.
Right.
So you're going to see stuff. The only question is when you will see it. And, CRT just asked a really good question.
Yep.
If you don't have a baseball season, yes, you can't really update much.
You can't print update.
So you probably won't see update if there's no baseball season. But my guess is you will have some sort of limited baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
And you will be able to get another series or two of flagship tops in. And so I think there'll be some things you'll see. I think you'll see even some more high-end product. You may see more high-end product than ever this year.
Yeah.
Because the people who will be staying, if they've got the bucks to be in it, they'll buy the super high-end product. You may see the middle class of products disappear, and you'll see the flagships of the world and the really high-end stuff, and you may not see the $80, $90, $100 boxes. You'll see the several $100 boxes, and you'll see the $40 and $50 boxes.
So real quick follow-up then, Rich, to Chris's point. Let's play this out. There's no baseball season this year. I asked Susie, formerly of Topps, on Twitter the other day, what happens as far as the imagery, right? And she's like, there's a lot of stock photos on file. So you could create a 2021 Series 1, for instance. But what about the rookie cards? There's no rookies this year. There's no rookie cards in Series 1 next year, correct?
Well, you can still use people as it. Technically, they'll still be rookies. So you might even have the same person showing up as a rookie 2 straight years. We just have to be careful on that. Yeah. But technically, they're still rookies. They technically still are rookie cards using the MLBPA definition they use for Topps of rookies. And Suze is right. There's a huge inventory of photos, but don't forget, we did have spring training. I guarantee you the photographers from Topps were at spring training. I guarantee you the photographers from Panini were at spring training.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to run out of photos this year because you did have a month of players in uniform.
Right.
You might not get something like Pro Debut this year. You might not get Heritage Minors this year because I'm really thinking there might not be a minor league season. You may have the major league. You may be able to quarantine and get the major league season in. But then the ballparks for the minor leagues, that's a much trickier thing because that's such in-person attendance is such a high percent of MILB revenue compared to MLB revenue. I think it's 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, John, you can't. Does Syracuse still have a team, or wherever you still have a team where you are?
Yeah, Syracuse. That's Tim Tebow.
Tim
Tebow.
Do you have a team? Tim, do you have a?
It's 4 blocks from here. I can walk to the stadium.
Drew, do you still?
Syracuse,
Oh yeah.
There's a AAA team of the Mets, obviously.
Yeah.
Right now, like you said, Rich brings up a great point. Minor league baseball, and it's something I'm very familiar with everywhere I've lived. I don't know. It seems like I'm right near a minor league baseball stadium. Their revenue is the gate, 75%. Right. And so without the gate, they're going to be, hemorrhaging money. And with what's going on, I don't think they play. We'll see what Major League Baseball does, probably to empty stadiums. But to Rich's point, they're going to miss the gate too. Let's be real, but they can probably function and survive without the gate where minor league baseball can't. And so, it'd be interesting. You're a minor league player, and so you're watching your major league club perform, and you can't get on the field. That's going to be a pretty frustrating thing for those guys. But
then you have You have 40-man roster issues, right?
Yep.
What happens when the guy blows out his elbow and needs Tommy John or sprains his ankle and you're going to call up somebody, from the AAA or AA team? If they're not playing, how does that work? Do you guys call up a guy on his couch and say, "Hey, we need you to report to Arizona"?
I hope those guys are doing more than what we're doing, and they're staying in shape and working out.
How would you theoretically get there? You're going to take a bus or a car? I'll show up in 3 days, and then again, if it's a quarantine type issue, well, now if this guy is up here in California and he's got to go down to Florida, and now are you bringing the COVID with you? I mean, it creates all types of logistical complications on top of not having a minor league season.
Here's something to think about. You might bring your guys you're most likely to be brought up on an injury. Maybe you keep them in your home city where you're playing.
You would have to,
in a hotel to eliminate that travel. So you're starting on the A's, Ben. I'm in the A's AAA team. You get hurt, God forbid. I'm already in Oakland. They put me up and said, be ready. First guy that kind of goes down in as a position player, you're in. So
you're almost going to have an expansion of the 40-man roster to 50 or 60 players because look at what happened up in your neck of the woods last year with the Yankees, right, John? They had so many injuries, guys that had, I don't want to say no business being on that roster, but a Yankee fan never would have thought they would have saw this guy and that guy and that guy all on their team last year. They were all playing and contributing, and they made the playoffs, right? And there were so many injuries. You're going to have to expand that beyond 40 men because you're going to probably need 45, 55 bodies in some cases to cover even a condensed year, even if we go down to 100 games.
Right.
But I'm sure they're all talking about that. But it's going to be a trickle-down effect into our hobby.
Exactly. The crazy thing is they don't even know where they're going to play. Are they going to play in like 6 stadiums in Arizona? Are teams even going to be in their stadium? There's so many unknowns.
Well, that's where it comes down to is from what I've heard is, like you said, they might be trying to contain it to one area, which in that case, they'd probably try and put some minor league system for the teams in place around there or do what Ben said, expand the rosters a little bit for that injury protection. But Ben, like you said, it is going to have a major trickle down effect into the hobby. It's going to even though Rich, like you said, they got the photos for a week in spring training, they didn't have those couple months to get the autographs like we were saying and stuff, which is going to be a key, as we know, this is a key thing in the hobby nowadays. So maybe it does what I want. And it goes back to a lot of products with less autos and people start chasing some non-autoed stuff. I know I'd like it, but I don't know what's going to happen, but it's
and to bring it back around to our caller, the O, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to start filling these products up with massive redemptions because we see how that's working out for Panini and this new, if Topps is next in line, we're going to see, Series 2 full of redemptions. Oh, we'll get to them when we get to them. Yeah, you'll probably get to quite a few of them, and we can trust that. It'll happen. You put a representative at every ballpark once we can and get all these players to sign, but you're talking about thousands of autographs per player, the guys that are featured. And it might also be we're not going to see all of the parallels, right? Bowman has base autos, refractor autos out of $4.99, $2.99, $1.99 before you know it. The guy signed 10,000 autos. You might just see base autos, and they're going to be print run out of $5,000. That's it. No parallels, no color, nothing.
And speaking of the O, since you brought him up, I'm going to pull a Tom Brady. I'm going to the patent office, and I'm patenting this. It ain't a show without the O. So no one beat me. Get that pet.
Well, it's not a show without Uncle Rich either, as guys. It is 12 o'clock. True. Rich, thanks so much.
That doesn't rhyme, though. That doesn't rhyme.
It doesn't rhyme. No, it doesn't rhyme. But guys. I guess it is 12. So, Rich, thanks so much for joining the show today.
I have one last thing.
Sure.
I use a princess cup for my coffee.
Sweet, that's awesome.
When my daughter was a little girl, we'd have the tea parties, right? Mm-hmm. And we'd both use her cups. And
right, she grew out of them, and you didn't.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Look, it fits in your hand. It's a perfect size, just enough coffee for a good 4 or 5 good swigs. And my wife sends me a message, and she's like, "Hey, good fairy cup," and I'm like,
"Mine's an SGC
right.
coffee cup. It's big."
That's right.
But
this fits in my hand.
You probably have bigger hands than I do, Johnny.
I don't know.
Well, guys, it was a blast as always. Thanks everybody for watching the show. We'll have a new group of hosts next week, and hope you guys have a good one. Stay safe. Have a good one.
Hey, wear your mask.
Perfect.